Welcome into A to Z Sports on a Titans Thursday. We got a lot to get to. Jack has done some research on number one seed since 2000. He hasn't gotten much sleep, as you could tell by his eyes. He's just been grinding away, researching away as hard as he can. And we're going to spit some facts and we're going to compare the Titans 12-5 team this year. And it will be unique because they did play 17 regular season games compared to all the other 16 regular season game schedule. But Jack's done the research, and we're going to dive into it. The first question we're going to ask has to do with about the disrespect. We're going to go back to Good Morning Football because it seems like they're the only national outlet that will talk about the Tennessee Titans and bring up the disrespect aspect of the Tennessee Titans season heading into the playoffs. We'll also show you Derrick Henry video at practice, courtesy of Teron Davenport, our guy for ESPN.com. Teron shot about a minute 18 of Derrick Henry at practice yesterday. We will show and diagnose that together as a group, and we're going to enjoy that. And we also, as Jack pays back his magic bucket Thursday last week, today with his eyeshadow. So if you're listening to this, eyeshadow Jack, you kind of look like Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean, not the Pirates of the Caribbean, but the Pirates of the Caribbean. So, but you look good, Jack, and we'll dive back into the magic bucket to see what you'll have to do. But welcome to the show and tell the fine folks what they need to do.
Yeah, I'm going for the smoky look today. Guys, as I pay my magic bucket debt and you guys are trickling in here, make sure to share the show. Share it on Facebook, retweet it on Twitter, and let's grow this conversation. We're going to have a good one today. The Titans have been getting a lot of talk, having the number one seed in the AFC, and it hasn't all been good. None of the adjectives that people are really using about the Titans have been very flattering. So we're going to talk about that. We've got some video of Derrick Henry back at practice. We're going to keep you guys entertained. The worst number one seed ever. Let's talk about it. If that's what the national media is talking about, we've got some stats to prove some stuff as well. I wrote a story about it on A to Z yesterday. But while you guys are coming in, make sure sharing is caring. Share the show on Facebook, retweet it on Twitter, and let's get into it today.
Man, Jack, you just look good. I like that.
Look, man, I know. I had to do it myself. I didn't have anyone help me with it. So I put it on myself. I think it looks kind of spooky.
DIY right here, bright and early from Jack Sparrow Gentry. Let's get this thing rocking and rolling. Welcome to A to Z Sports. I am Zach Bingham. He is Jack Sparrow Gentry, and we are A to Z Sports in the morning. And we got a great show for you. We got to thank our sponsors, including our title sponsor, BetMGM. New users get a $1,000 risk-free bet with promo code ATOZ Sports. So use that promo code and sign up. They got a lot of NBA props going out. They got super wild card weekend on the horizon starting on Saturday. So get the boys together, get your promo codes, BetMGM. Also want to thank our presenting sponsor, and presenting sponsors include Farm Bureau Health Plans. Jack, I had my call yesterday with Farm Bureau Health Plans. I've started the process to get me a better health plan. I'm really excited about this. I am weirdly excited about getting a new health plan. And maybe you should be too. I'm going to talk throughout the course of the next several months and weeks as I go through this process so you guys can do the same thing. That's Farm Bureau Health Plans right there in all across the state of Tennessee. Bone and Joint Institute in their Franklin state-of-the-art facility with superb, experienced doctors to help you. That's the Bone and Joint Institute, Wilson County Hyundai. At wilsoncountyhyundai.com, find your perfect make and model vehicle. It's going to be a Hyundai. Could be the Palisade, could be the Sonata. You find out on wilsoncountyhyundai.com. And Renters Warehouse, only $89 per month. Nashville's professional landlords. They take care of all of the hard work of being a landlord. That is renterswarehouse.com. All right, Jack, let's get this party started with really let's start with the disrespect, right? Because it seems that the Titans, as the number one seed at 12-5, are not kind of getting the respect that they deserve. You wrote a story on A to Z Sports.com yesterday,
Yeah.
and you did some research on all the number one seeds dating back to 2000. I'm really interested to hear your research. And it sounds like there are certain teams that you have kind of paired up against this Titans team heading into their possible Super Bowl run. What can you tell us?
Well, the Titans are just the 7th team to lock down the number one seed in the NFL since 2000 with just 12 wins. 12 wins, usually, sometimes it takes 13, sometimes it takes 14. This season, the Chiefs and the Titans were the only ones with 12, and obviously the Titans won the head-to-head tiebreak. But there are a few teams, and on paper, everyone, in today's world, in today's, realm of football, it's all about stats, box scores, analytics, percentages, rankings, all that stuff. All that stuff on paper that people like to talk about without really using much context to it. And so when guys like Ross Tucker tweet out that the Titans are the worst number one seed since you name it, that rubs some fans the wrong way. And you know what? Not everything is meant to be judged on paper. The Titans roster, a lot of the reasons why the Titans aren't, knocking down any doors when it comes to stats and records this season. Look, the Titans are 15th in the league in points per game, but they're 6th in scoring defense. Not top 5 in either, okay? But you got to keep in mind, injuries. 91 guys have been used this season. A lot of the production, not only last year, but, the added production you expected from Julio Jones and a couple other guys, that hasn't really been there because of injuries.
Do you think those guys even know about the injury
No,
that they have sustained? Or like they know Derrick Henry left, and they know that Julio Jones, because they're probably on their fantasy teams, right? But we're not playing fantasy football when you're talking about guys like that diagnosing what the number one seed in the AFC is.
Yeah, so a lot of these guys and a lot of the national media, they don't have time to watch the Titans games. The Titans are a small market team. The only time people are watching the Titans.
That's the worst. I'm a timeout, Jack, and you may be right. That's the worst effing excuse I've ever heard in my entire life. That's like me being a teacher and say, look, I don't have time to read all of the books to teach to my students. Some of them that they have to read, who cares? It's their summer reading. I only read a couple of chapters of that last book. Let's take a test on it. That's the biggest load of BS. And that gets my blood boiling, because you're right, but it's just not the way that it should be.
And I'm with you. I'm with you. I think that, since they haven't been able to watch the Titans, which is, their job to watch the best teams in the NFL and be able to, properly break down those teams, they resort to box scores. They, check where teams are ranking in pass offense, run defense, pass defense, whatever it may be. And the Titans on paper aren't going to wow you in many statistical categories, aside from run defense, which they finished 2nd in the NFL this season. So on paper, you can judge this Titans team and what they've done for the regular season and be a little underwhelmed, and rightfully so. They're not top 5 in either offense or defense. I just mentioned that in scoring. But numbers need context too sometimes. Stats aren't the end all be all. Analytics in football, there comes an eye test as well. And when you're talking about the Titans, you can't judge this team off of their regular season numbers, because they were without some of the key cogs for majority of the season. They were without Derrick Henry for 9 games this season. They had A.J. Brown was on IR. Julio Jones was on IR. Taylor Lewan was bouncing back from an ACL and took him a little while to get going. Roger Stafford's been down.
I know ifs and buts, but you would think if Derrick Henry played in the Texans game and played in the Steelers game, that they wouldn't have lost those 2 games, right? I mean, I hate going back because it's not fair. I mean, they are what the record says they are. But I do think that, they don't fumble and turn the football over as much in those 2 games if Derrick Henry's toting the rock. That would change their season drastically. And I also think it would change the perception of their season drastically.
Apollo Dyson, great comment. Numbers don't lie, but they don't tell the whole truth. Don't base your entire analysis and narrative around one team on numbers from the regular season, especially when that team is the most injured team in NFL history. It has, like I mentioned, 91 dudes have suited up on Sundays for the Titans. You can say that, the DVOA stat, which for those who don't know DVOA, it kind of contextualizes just the importance of situations. And, gaining 7 yards on 1st and 10 is not the same thing as gaining 7 yards on 3rd and 6. The same thing with a 10-yard rush from your 20 is not the same thing as a 10-yard rush from your opponent's 20. They're weighted differently. And that's a stat that people like to use to determine, whether a team's fraudulent or not. And of course, the Titans have the worst DVOA of any number one seed in history. But we're going to go through 3 teams here in a second, Zach. 3 teams that I believe the Titans are, if you want to say worst number one seed ever, I think at least 2 of these teams are worse than what the Titans are this year with the roster they got to the playoffs with. That's not counting Derrick Henry, right? They're still missing Derrick Henry. So the roster that the Titans rolled out there in Week 18, I believe there's at least 2 teams worse than that Titans number one seed this year since the year 2000. That's the key. Since the year 2000, we're going through all of these teams that locked down the number one seed in the NFL.
All right. We're going to get to those 3 teams. I don't know what those 3 teams are. I'm very curious. I will read your article later today. I didn't read it yesterday. It's on A2ZSports.com. It discloses these 3 teams, but you're going to tell us these 3 teams comparing since 2000, the number one seeds versus the disrespect that the Titans are getting this year. But first, I want to tell you guys about the Bone and Joint Institute. Don't fumble on your recovery. Go to the Bone and Joint Institute down there in Franklin. They've got that location and satellite locations all across Middle Tennessee. So if you live around the area and you've got a shoulder that's been bothering you, or a knee or an ankle, a hip, whatever it is, they have the orthopedic doctors to help you and take care of you. I've used those doctors. I trust those doctors. A to Z Sports trust those doctors right there at the Bone and Joint Institute.
Download the BetMGM app today. Guys, finish watching the show. Stick with us for the next hour. And then once you're done, download the BetMGM app because they have a special promotion for NBA games for tonight and tomorrow. New users use promo code A to Z Sports. Place a $10 moneyline wager on any NBA team in action tonight, and you'll turn that $10 into $200 when either team hits a three-pointer. The Grizzlies are in action. They're hosting Minnesota tonight. So if you place a $10 moneyline wager, doesn't matter if it wins or loses. As long as one team hits a three-pointer during that game, you'll turn that $10 into $200. That's free money, Zach. $200 in your pocket to then roll over, gamble however you'd like, whatever sport you'd like. Just tonight, you have to place it on an NBA team, just one NBA team, $10, 10 measly dollars, and you'll win $200 as soon as a team hits a three-point shot. John Morant's shooting about 50% this month from behind the arc, so that's a safe one to do it in if you want to go Grizzlies money line and then turn that $10 into $20 while also getting an extra $200 while teams just stroke the ball from 3.
All right. The Titans are 12-5. They played a 17-game regular season, the first in history this year. But, Jack, you went back and compared them to all of the teams from since 2000, the number one seeds that you have. What did you find out?
So I mentioned the Titans are the 7th team to win 12 games and to lock down a number one seed. In the past decade, there's only been 2 teams to win 3 teams with the number one seed in their conference to win 12 games. 2 of those won the Super Bowl in the 2015 Denver Broncos and the 2014 Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks beat the 12-4 Patriots in that game. So that's the other 12-4 team with the number one seed in their conference. So that bodes well for the Titans. But since 2000, there's 3 teams. And I want to start with the the Oakland Raiders of 2002. 2002 Raiders. That was a team, if you remember, Zach.
I didn't know anything about this. Now I'm excited. Now I like this.
The Oakland Raiders that season in 2002 are the only team since 2000 to win the number one seed in their conference with 11 wins. Just 11 wins got them the number one seed. That team was led by MVP quarterback Rich Gannon, who had an awesome year. I mean, how could he not? He was throwing to guys like Tim Brown, Jerry Rice, and Jerry Porter.
Number one offense in the NFL.
Exactly. And so, but they then fell, and I know you know this, Zach. They eventually made it to the Super Bowl where they lost to John Gruden, Mike Alstott, and Pound That Rock, Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. And, on that defense, their defense wasn't too shabby. They had Charles and Ron Woodson and Bill Romanowski. So this was a Raiders team with a lot of star power, a lot of talent. But, they put together a season with the least amount of wins to win the 1 seed since 2000. So that's why they're in this conversation. I do believe that Raiders team is better than this Titans team, just talent-wise across the board. They've got a handful of Hall of Famers on that roster. But that's a team that has to be mentioned because, 11 wins to win the 1 seed, that's a rare occurrence.
All right, so let's talk about the disrespect when it comes to that Oakland Raiders team. I think, the Titans have been kind of on the back burner, as we've talked about. They've been injured. Their star player, got hurt where he couldn't break the records that we believed he could break with an extra game, right? This was a back-to-back 2,000-yard season if we had ever seen one, right? He was on pace when he went down. So that storyline went away. For that Oakland Raiders team, they had the storyline of John Gruden, their head coach, for the biggest trade for a coach in NFL history. The Bucks sent first-round picks, and then you could do this, a load of cash, a duffel bag full of money
McDonald's
to Oakland, right? And so, like, that was the offseason storyline, and it all came to fruition throughout the course of the year of what were the Raiders going to be without John Gruden. And so, like, they were respected and got notoriety. Granted, they were the number 1 offense in the NFL at the time. So that's very interesting. And then so they lost to the Bucks in the Super Bowl. All right. So that's one team. What's another team?
So the Raiders are the best of the bunch. I've got 2 teams a little worse than the Raiders, not only just talent-wise, but full Pro Bowlers, you name it. And we'll get into those right now. So first, I want to talk about the 2000 New York Giants. Now, the New York Giants in 2000 did not have a lot of talent on that roster. Kerry Collins, former Titans quarterback, you guys remember, he was the quarterback of that Giants team who won the 1 seed in the NFC. They put just 2 players in the Pro Bowl, right guard Ron Stone and Jesse Armstead, the linebacker. Now, I get it. The Titans put 1 guy in, Kevin Byard, but that's because a lot of their Pro Bowl talent was injured throughout the season. They didn't get to put up their regular numbers, and, it is what it is, and Pro Bowls aren't everything. But that does, provide some context for the New York Giants of 2000. They had guys like Tiki Barber, who was 25. He was banged up that season. I think he only played in 12 games, finished with just over 1,000 rushing yards. But the weapons they had, Ike Hilliard and Amani Toomer. Those guys, and I know Amani Toomer, he caught for over 1,000 yards that season. But those aren't the generational talents out wide. Those guys don't compare to A.J. Brown and Julio Jones for the Titans. Like the Titans, though, the Giants do have some similarities. The Titans finished 15th in scoring offense this season. The Giants in 2000, 15th in scoring offense. But they had a defense where Michael Strahan led that was near the top in the NFL in most categories. But without the playmakers, without the, a full arsenal of just, Hall of Fame talent, they also made it to the Super Bowl. Want to guess how they did?
How?
Well, they lost to the Baltimore Ravens. So that's becoming a trend, right? 2 teams, 2 number 1, the number 1 seeds in these conferences, some of the worst, in my opinion, since the year 2000. They're falling short in the Super Bowl. And I think a lot of people, and I saw it in a couple comments before I got into it, they knew about the 2000 New York Giants. Kerry Collins isn't striking any fear in secondary's eyes and defensive coordinator's eyes. So the 2000 New York Giants have to be among that conversation.
And that was one of the few Super Bowls that, Ray Lewis won the MVP, a defensive player won the MVP, like Von Miller won when the Broncos won with Peyton Manning. This is a very interesting team because you have, and the Titans, what's working against them is they have a star in Derrick Henry. Their star is not their quarterback, and they play in a small market. New York is the biggest market. When the Giants or the Jets haven't been close in a long time. But when you have that market, you're at least going to have more respect because the money, and let's just talk about business, right? The money follows big markets. So everybody, there's more people, the population, there's more fans, there's more history with the New York Giants. So all of that plays into it. But as far as team, I don't want to say what I think right now because I want to hear this third team. But the New York Giants you bring up, very interesting. And you're talking about who's the worst out of these one seeds, right? The worst one seed. That's kind of what we're talking about.
Because that's what everybody's saying, right? The Titans are such a bad one seed this season. Well, I want to just make sure everyone remembers these teams, because this next one, and I've seen at least one guy guess it in the comments. The 2003 Philadelphia Eagles team. Donovan McNabb was the only player on that offense to make the Pro Bowl. And they added just two more on defense, Corey Simon and Troy Vincent. They were also in Hawaii that season. Eagles finished 11th in scoring offense and 7th in scoring defense, like the Titans, not top 5 on either side of the ball. They beat Brett Favre in the divisional round, but then they made it to the NFC Championship game, and they fell just short. They lost to the Carolina Panthers, led by quarterback Jake Delhomme. So, the Eagles in 2003 weren't really raising any eyebrows. Brian Westbrook, Donovan McNabb, but they were a 12-win team as well, 12-4. Back when there were 16 games in the regular season. I know it seems like a long time ago. This season that seemingly lasted a year and a half, but they fell short as well. So the 03 Eagles, not a very impressive team. I believe the Giants are the worst of the bunch in 2000, but you can't tell me that this Titans team is worse than either of those teams, those two teams, when the Titans are fully healthy, because Derrick Henry is expected to be back. So the Titans are the worst number 1 seed. What? On paper? I mean, we can't judge football teams just on paper. These statistics, DVOA, all kinds of stuff, yards per play, all that stuff, none of it factors in injuries, Zach. Those two teams, the Giants and the Eagles, they were pretty healthy throughout the season. The Titans are not. So stats aren't everything. Numbers aren't everything. And numbers certainly don't factor in injuries and, the hurdles and I don't want to, be preachy about the Titans, because I think a lot of people know what the Titans have gone through this season. But you have to keep in mind, you have to remind yourself that DVOA, while it's a useful stat, it's an interesting stat, it's not everything. And it doesn't factor in the guys that the Titans have missed. It doesn't, account for the lost production due to injury. So that's where I have an issue. And at the end of the day, the Titans aren't the worst number 1 seed of all time. They're not the worst. No, they're not even bottom 3. I mean, come on, especially as they get healthier as the season goes along. Let's get real. The 2000 New York Giants, led by quarterback Kerry Collins, and the 2003 Eagles, who, by the way, that was the second straight season they won the number 1 seed. They did it as well in 2002 when Blaine Bishop, guest of the Tighten Up podcast this week, was on the team. So there you go for some throwback information. That's my stance on it. Zach, what do you think?
So I'm with you. I think the Raiders are better than this Tennessee Titans team. Number 1 in offense. They had all of their players. They got more respect. We talked about the storyline of John Gruden. So I'm going to put them aside. So now it's between the Giants and the Eagles. I'm also in agreement of the Giants. They didn't have any stars. Like
none.
And Kerry Collins.
Tiki Barber was a rising star, but he wasn't Tiki Barber just yet. He was 25 years old. He kicked it into high gear, and he lasted a long time. But Amani Toomer and Ike Hilliard as your weapons, and Kerry Collins is throwing to him? Give me a break.
So I'm going to put the Titans above them. They're a better football team. The Eagles are unique because this is what I did. I went back because I remember that team, and I'm watching Man in the Arena because I've referenced it quite a bit of time. I love Man in the Arena. It's a great documentary. You need to watch it. It peels back the onion of what Tom Brady is, who he is, and it's just really good. But they go through all the Super Bowl teams, and they talk about the storyline of that Super Bowl of T.O. coming back and some of the guys that Philadelphia had. Here is the unique part, and this is the research that I did while you were kind of talking. In that season, you know how earlier this week, Jack, I talked about Mike Vrabel and we talked about all the good things that he did. And I brought up he took over a playoff team, and his division has been really, really bad. And it has. The Colts fell short this year. The Colts were a good team. They obviously were not a great team. They didn't make the playoffs. They lost their last 2 games. In that season, the Philadelphia Eagles, you're talking about the 13-3 Philadelphia Eagles?
The 2003, I believe they were 12-4 Philadelphia Eagles. Let me double check that. But I believe they were
the year they went to the Super Bowl.
So the 2003 Eagles were 12-4, and they lost in the NFC Championship game to the Panthers, who then went on to lose the Super Bowl to the Patriots.
So you're talking about the 2003 team, not the 2004.
Correct.
So overall, they lost to the Panthers. I now remember that game because Steve Smith, and then they went on to lose. That was kind of the ascent of back-to-back years. Philadelphia is a strong market. I still think that the Titans are better than that Eagles team. Derrick Henry is the X factor of that team. For the Eagles, they don't really have that X factor.
Yeah.
They have Donovan McNabb,
and they had Brian Westbrook for half the season. And Deuce Staley was kind of getting a lot of run. He was the Deontay Foreman, if you will, of the Eagles when Westbrook went down early that season.
So I would rank this. I would say the Titans would be second, right? So, and I guess however you want to categorize it, but the worst team was the Giants.
Yeah.
The second worst team was the Eagles. Then I would probably and you know what? We don't know what the Titans are going to do. The Titans could vault over the Raiders because if they win the Super Bowl, they were to have done more than the Oakland Raiders did because they lost, right? But right now, sitting in right here going into this playoffs, the Raiders probably a better team than the Titans. But here's what I'm at, Jack. There's so much potential, right? This Titans team has so much potential to make this Super Bowl run. They haven't been full force since the beginning of the year, and they got punched in the mouth by Arizona the first week, and then they kind of settled into their own. But you look at the Seahawks game where Julio had a really good game, then the Colts game where Julio got hurt. That's where he hurt his hamstring. After that Colts game at home, they were never the same. We talk about, and I'll give credit to the chat, the Titanic 3. The Titanic 3 has been dodging icebergs all year long. They have not been solid. And I think, and Mr. Shuckle, I'm not going to do your comment because you're cussing at me, which you don't want to get in that match. I'll destroy you. Mr. Shuckle says, how are you going to say the Raiders are better? That's so stupid. Right now, the Raiders had more weapons and had more to show, had a better record, a better quarterback. He was the MVP of the season, right?
Jerry Rice, Tim Brown, a couple Hall of Famers, Jerry Porter on the outside.
Mr. Shuckle, do your research. Like, I don't mind debating with you, but don't come to this fight with a knife. Bring a gun because know your research. Rich Gannon was the MVP of the season. What the Titans have now, and Titans fans know this, all of the makeup of this team is still unproven for what their ceiling can be. I think that their ceiling could be a Super Bowl championship. I told you, and I will double down tomorrow on what I have said throughout the course of the season. The Titans have the ability to win the Super Bowl. They have to figure out in essentially 3 games who is this Tennessee Titans team prior to the year of what we all thought with Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill playing at the level that we played at last year, Julio Jones, the unbelievable addition, A.J. Brown now a year older, a year wiser, a year better, a defense that's revamped. No longer are you dealing with Vic, sit on the couch Beasley, or I'm a clown Jadeveon Clowney. Yeah. You have Bud Dupree, Harold Landry's come into his own. Danico Autry has been an A-plus signing, and Jeffrey Simmons has done what he's done. This team, and Brett Kern has been the most consistent thing on this earth. I don't want to, leave that out. I think they have all of the pieces to the puzzle. We're about to find out in the next month. Can they sit down and put that puzzle together? I believe they can, but it doesn't mean we talk about disrespect heading into this playoffs. Though that Oakland Raiders team, they had a better record, a better resume, and better players at this point for what we know. When the dust settles, we may say that the Titans are better than the Raiders because they're Super Bowl champions. Or if they go to the Super Bowl and lose, we may re-diagnose this. I won't forget this conversation, Jack. I think it's a really good point.
You bring up a good point that the Titans, the book isn't finished. There's still a lot of writing left to do. But we do know that they have better weapons already without knowing how AJ Brown's career finishes out, without knowing how Derrick Henry's career finishes out. Really, and some of the guys on the O-line. I mean, we mentioned the Hall of Fame talent the Raiders had, but the Titans, I mean, we flash forward 10 years, they may have a few guys out there as well. I don't know that Ryan Tannehill will be a Hall of Famer, but it's important to note that while we do know what happened in those seasons, for those three teams, which are the 2000 Giants, the 2002 Raiders, and the 2003 Eagles, they came up short. Two teams made it to the Super Bowl, one team lost in the conference championship game. The Titans right now, things are looking okay. The AFC's a little down this season. The Bills have been banged up. They can't run the ball. The Chiefs haven't really been the Chiefs of years past this season. Now, I get it. They're hot late. But the Titans have as clear of a shot, as good of a shot as anybody to head to the Super Bowl this year. And it's impossible to judge who the worst number one seed is and include the Titans in that conversation just yet. Now, if they lose in the divisional round, then that conversation can come back up.
Then it drops all the way to the bottom. I mean, 2008, they were the number one seed, but they were clear-cut a very good football team throughout the course of the year. They started 10-0. They trickled off towards the end of the season, but
it was their offense led by Kerry Collins.
Right? But if and Titans fans in the chat know that 2008 game or should, that was a product of the game, not the team. Chris Johnson was their lightning rod, and their lightning rod got broke. He hurt his ankle and didn't play in the third and fourth quarter. And then, as we know, referencing this year's games, when you turn the football over, you lose, like the Texans game, like the Patriots game, like the Steelers game, like that Baltimore Ravens game in 2008. You had two key fumbles. Lindell White fumbled the football, and Algie Crumple. It was a 13-10 game. Algie Crumpler fumbled the football inside the red zone. That's points, baby. Those are your 3 points to tie the football game or 7 to lead. So when you get into it, and this is why the NFL is so exciting. We don't know who the opponent's going to be. We know who it could be and who it couldn't be. But I do think they've got to get into this game. And Jack, I'll say this before we move on to our clip. Julio Jones has got to rise above. You talk about rise up. He's been rising up for the Atlanta Falcons his entire career, his entire Hall of Fame career. Julio Jones, number 2, has got to rise to the occasion over the next month. You start in the divisional round and you build up, but no more of this hamstring, no more of these I can't play late in the game, I'm sitting out. All that crap is blown out the window. This is go time. This is why you traded away your second-round pick for number 2.
Yeah. And here, I want to clear one thing up. MB says, Jack, how can you say the AFC is down? There were 13 teams at the top with all within 3 games of each other. Well, MB, as I mentioned earlier, the Titans are the 7th team to lock down a number 1 seed with 12 wins. Only 6 times that's happened before. Really 7 if you count the Raiders, who won 11 games. And when you look at the AFC over the past few years, it's been the Chiefs and the Ravens winning 14 games, New England 13, and then 14. I mean,
you usually have that one supreme team that has only lost 3 games or 2 games.
In a 12-win season in a 16-game schedule is a little different than 12 wins in 17 games. That's all I mean by it, MB. Record-wise, at the top of the top, there isn't a 14-win team. There isn't a 15-win team. There isn't even a 13-win team. So that's what I mean by that.
All right, we're going to get to disrespect, and then we're going to ask you guys a very good question when it comes to the modern era and what is happening. We're going to get to Good Morning Football and a clip of them actually talking about the Titans. But first, I am going to tell you guys about Wilson County Hyundai. WilsonCountyHyundai.com is where you need to go to get your next ride, whether it's the Palisade, the Sonata, the Elantra, the Santa Fe. They have your perfect make and model. You just need to go and test drive one today. I have been behind the wheel of that Palisade, and I love it. It is my favorite SUV. It truly is. 3rd row seating. It's got great, comfortable seats, cooling seats, heated seats. It's got you covered, baby. I'm telling you. And Payne Bone will hook you up with a great deal. His team at Wilson County Hyundai. Tell them A to Z Sports sent you. they'll knock some dollars off. They'll work with you. I guarantee that. That's WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Download the app today. New users use promo code A to Z Sports. And if you wager $10 on a money line in the NBA tonight, any game in the NBA tonight, you put $10 on a team's money line. As long as one three-pointer is made in that game, you'll turn that $10 into $200. They're handing you $200, telling you to take it and run with it. You can roll it over. You can keep betting it and turn it into more money. Or, do whatever you please. Just make sure when you download the BetMGM app, use promo code A to Z Sports to cash in on this great offer today. And hey, the Grizzlies are in action tonight. The Grizzlies have been hot. They're first place in the Southwest Division. Maybe that's a team you're willing to throw your $10 money line wager on, where you can earn a little extra cash on top of the $200.
Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years or older in Tennessee only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualifications and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable. Free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days of assurance. For a problem with gambling, call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789 right there on BetMGM. Let's get to this clip. Good Morning Football talked about the disrespect that we've been talking about. There's only two teams with number one seeds, the Titans and the Packers. Nobody's really talking about Aaron Rodgers yet. They're waiting for what team that they're faced. Good Morning Football, and we'll bring him back up again. And Kyle Brandt, probably the Titans fans' favorite media guy, because he is the guy that supports and talks about them. And we talked about what Good Morning Football is and what their show is. There's nothing wrong with that. They're a blow roses show. They like to pump up every single NFL team because they're on NFL Network, funded by the National Football League. Let's go to the clip of them talking about the Titans and the disrespect.
It would, and so would mine. There's a travesty, and if you look around, apparently an inevitability that somehow, some way, this team finds a way to lose this weekend. I'm just going to put it up. The Titans, not even playing this weekend, still somehow lose because, and by the way, we don't even have videotape of them because their games didn't happen. They weren't recorded. They don't matter. Peter has thrown down the gauntlet earlier this week that he is asking anyone in the media anywhere who's not in Tennessee and who's not a former Titan to pick the Titans to win the Super Bowl. Anybody. They're a one seed with a bye. And have you found anyone?
Not one person. They said Shannon Sharp mentioned them as a contender. I go, that does not count. Has Shannon Sharp said
No.
They are going to win the Super Bowl?
Yes. I think they might. I honestly, I think they might lose this weekend. I don't know how they're going to do it. Maybe they fold as a franchise. Maybe they decide, you know what, we're just going to quit now. We're going to forfeit, and just whoever was supposed to play us can just advance to the next round, because apparently we got nothing. So I think the Titans might lose this weekend, and I think that'd be a trap.
Least respected one seed I've ever
of all time,
seen,
maybe in any sport. And I think they lose this weekend.
MJD, do you want to pick the Titans to win the Super Bowl?
No, I'm cool. Yeah, that's a rival of mine. We would never do that.
Okay.
We would never do that.
I'm glad this is objective television on a Wednesday morning. Woo, before the Jets.
I love that line right there at the end. They kind of tell you exactly what the show is. At least they're open and honest about it. Right? They say what they mean and mean what they say. And that's what we try to do here on A to Z Sports. We're organic. We're not planned. We're not a debate show. We're not all that other stuff. But I do value what they said about the respect or lack thereof for the Tennessee Titans this year. And look, it's just like Terry Bradshaw is not going to pick against the Pittsburgh Steelers, just like Maurice Jones-Drew's not going to pick against the Jags or pick their rival. It's just how it works. So I think they have a point. The only guy that I've seen pick them and win the Super Bowl is a former Titan who's kind of gotten a little bit of national
Harry.
Harry
Douglas. Yeah.
That's the only one that I've seen.
He's always got the Titans back, and I love that from Kyle Brandt, kind of trolling everybody. He says, he's pretty much calling out everybody for not really watching this Titans team, not paying attention, while the Titans continue to string together wins, while they, dominated the AFC and their really tough opponents. Remember, they're the first team in NFL history to beat 8 teams with a winning record, and they did it without Derrick Henry. They did it without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones and Taylor Lewan and Roger Saffold and Christian Fulton. The list goes on and on. They've got a ton of guys that they could have used this season. They still managed to win 12 games. Vrabel doesn't care. Vrabel's not an excuse guy. But I do love Kyle Brandt kind of sticking up saying, you know what? Since nobody's picking the Titans, they may lose this weekend. I mean, come on, guys. It's time to start paying attention to the Titans. I don't know how the national media has let them slip by for so long, but I mean, there's going to be a reckoning. There's going to be a reckoning next week. I truly believe that. But the most disrespected number 1 seed in sports.
We have a first, Jack.
What do we have?
The first time you've ever worn eyeshadow.
Oh yeah.
Right? Is it?
Well,
you don't have to answer that. I don't want to get in your personal life.
Yes.
I don't. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, absolutely not. If you like eyeshadow, wear eyeshadow. But for me, this is the first time. Yeah. Hopefully the last.
Here is a first. We've got a love of the show, and this love of the show is now a part of the show because I am taking this user question. I'm scrapping what we prepared. We prepare. We don't come to this show and say, hey, guys, just talk amongst yourselves what you want to talk about. Come on, guys. We'll read the chat. That's not how the show works. We come prepared with topics to ask you guys. For the first time in the history of this show, which has been going on for 5+ years, we're going to take a question and Audible. Boo, 42, Audible, up. Chris is getting the love of the show. I love this question, and I'm going to post it right now. So the question is, will the Titans be underdogs regardless of any team they play in the divisional round? I think this is, and we don't know who they are going to play in the divisional round, but I do love this comment or this question because this really isn't the disrespect because it goes from Vegas, then trickles all the way down to what actual people are betting on because not everybody watches the Titans, right? I mean, we've established that. Will the Titans be an underdog regardless of any team they play in the divisional round? Because, and here's where this is why it's such a good question. Chris, I'm keeping you up there because it's a damn good question. Who's the worst seed in the AFC?
Pittsburgh Steelers.
If the Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Kansas City Chiefs and Ben Roethlisberger's the quarterback, they're going to believe in the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Tennessee Titans. I bet that it would be a 1 or a 1-point spread. I mean, this is a great question.
Yeah, and let's get into it. So the Titans played the Steelers not too long ago in the month of December, and this was in Pittsburgh. Remember, at Heinz Field where the Titans, have struggled historically. The Steelers were 1.5-point favorites in that game. Now, in the NFL and for most teams, home field advantage, especially in the playoffs, is worth about 3 points. So that could carry over, and the Titans, I do expect them to be favored in that game, but not more than 2.5. I don't believe that line gets to 3, but Las Vegas still doesn't respect the Titans. They've labeled the Titans as underdogs 8 times this season. You know what the Titans have done in those 8 games, Zach? They've won 6 of them. They've won 6 of those games. The Titans like being underdogs. But do I think they'll be underdogs no matter who they'll play? No, because I do believe that they'll be favored over the Steelers and over the Raiders. But if New England is to come to town, if the Bengals and that humming offense is to come to Nashville, it could be closer to pick, but I do believe the Titans will be favored in the divisional round, but not by more than 3 with any of these teams as long as they stay healthy.
It obviously depends on how the game plays out, right? Because if the Steelers beat the Chiefs by like 10, I don't know. If the Raiders blow out the Bengals, if it's a shootout and the Bengals, I don't know, Joe Burrow turns into Joe Turnover, and all of a sudden the Raiders win by like 17 and Hunter Renfrow has 3 touchdowns. It obviously depends on how the game pulls out, but I think because not many people know about the Titans, and we don't know how Derrick Henry is going to be. We're about to talk about Derrick Henry a little bit more. We're about to see Derrick Henry a little bit more in this show as we play a clip from practice yesterday. But nobody really knows what he's going to be post-surgery. Yes. Julio Jones, Jack, I've asked you this. What's Julio's best route in a Titans uniform?
It's tough to come up with that answer. Best route. He had that one.
Jack, whenever your voice goes high, it tells me that it's
it's hard. He hasn't really made that many splash plays. He just caught his first touchdown in week 18 of the regular season. He hadn't been really available for much of the season. But you're right, Derrick Henry. Will he get to King Henry form? He's hard to bring down, but what makes him great is what he can do when he bounces it outside and kick it into high gear. We don't know what that's going to look like yet. But you mentioned the Raiders. What gets lost in the fold here? When people talk about the Titans, what do they talk about? Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones on rare occasions. They don't talk about how the Titans shut down every rushing offense they face. They don't pay attention to the defense. They remember last year, the Titans gave up 53% of their third downs on defense. Well, what have the Titans done this year? They've completely flipped that. Shane Bowen and Jim Schwartz, by the way, who was a great offseason hire, they come in and turn it around this season. They bring in guys like Danico Autry, Bud Dupree, Zach Cunningham. And when you talk about the Titans, it can't just be Derrick Henry in this offensive rushing attack. It has to be what they can do on the defensive side of the ball. That's what set them apart this regular season. That's what's earned them the number 1 seed. And that's what will carry them into the playoffs.
And Main G brings up, come on now, guys, you know what he's going to be like. He's the king. He's always been, be real. And Main's not wrong. Every single time that we've ever seen Derrick Henry in the role since he kind of emerged as the player that he is, and this is when a player or an athlete goes into their prime, right? They're best in their prime. Now, players and athletes, their primes are extended. Running backs are unique. Derrick Henry is unique to the trend of running backs. It's starting to come back a little bit more where you have a main bell cow back, but Derrick Henry is the best among all running backs. Will he continue to be? I don't know. History says that he will be the same person that he always is because he's a freak of nature, but I don't know. So that leads us into, let's watch Derrick Henry. We watched him last week at practice. Teron Davenport of ESPN.com was at practice yesterday. We want to credit him with this video because it's a really good collab and montage. And there's some music. It's not 80s montage music, but there's some music in this collab of videos of Derrick Henry at practice yesterday. Let's take a look for ourselves at that. But before we do, I am going to talk about Farm Bureau health plans. Farm Bureau health plans, better coverage, better rates, better service. And they have locations, 200 plus locations all across the state of Tennessee. And this is the best part. For your health plan, it can be individual. They have family plans designed for young families, new graduates, entrepreneurs. You can learn more about that plan at fbhp.com. I met with Farm Bureau Health Plans yesterday. I started my ascent of what happens? What do I have to do? What questions do I have to answer? It's been so easy so far. So check them out at fbhp.com. You can schedule online or you can call them on the phone. They have different ways to get a hold of them to change your health plan.
While you're on the phone today, download the BetMGM app. If you don't use a sportsbook, I promise you the BetMGM app is the one you need to download. It has the best variety, the best selection. It's the easiest to use of all sportsbook apps. Use promo code A to Z Sports for new users if you're just now getting into it, or you want to change sportsbooks. Maybe you don't like the way things are going on your other one, and you want, maybe a new sportsbook app will bring you some luck. Use promo code A to Z Sports, and tonight and tomorrow, if you put a $10 moneyline wager on any NBA team that plays, you could turn that $10 into $200 as long as any team in that game hits one three-pointer. It's layups and threes in the NBA nowadays. We talk about analytics in football. Nobody shoots the mid-range shots anymore in the NBA besides DeMar DeRozan. But use promo code A to Z Sports, ATOZ Sports, to cash in on this offer. Remember, $10 on the money line. Win or lose, you'll win $200 as long as one team hits a three-pointer in that game. Take advantage of it now. Download the BetMGM app. Use that promo code A to Z Sports.
Let's take you to the tape. King Henry yesterday at practice. This video is courtesy of our guy, Teron Davenport from ESPN.com, who covers the Titans. This is the King, week 2 back at practice.
Hey, let's be with it. Make it feel real. Press the control. Get out. There you go. Make it feel real. Good. Hey, we good if y'all good. Come on. Yeah, yeah. Good.
I just want to ask, did everybody else's heart drop when he slipped?
Yeah. That was
the first time I'd seen that video. And I like doing that because I like reacting live on air. My heart sank a little bit. I was like, whoa. And I think everybody else at practice did the same thing.
Yeah, it was a little scary. You kind of just want to see him keep his feet and everything. But also, you know, that's part of the game. He's going to slip in games probably. I mean, he's going to be tackled. That's for sure. What I liked about that, and you can hear Titans running back Tony Dews in the background saying, let's make it real. Let's make it real. Let's make it feel good, which is huge because not only is just getting him back healthy, fine, but you've got to get in not just game shape, but playoff game shape. We've got to everyone. There's 3 levels to the NFL season, and Blaine Bishop was telling us this on the Tighten Up podcast. If you haven't listened, go do that. There's 3 levels to the NFL season. There's preseason game speed, regular season game speed, and playoff game speed. Derrick Henry's been out the last 9 games, and by the time he comes back, it'll be over 11 weeks he's been on the shelf. Getting him these 2 weeks of practice is going to be very important to get him back into that playoff game shape. You don't just want Derrick Henry back, right? You want King Henry back. And what we saw in those videos, that's not what we're going to get, in a couple, in 2 Sundays when Derrick Henry and the Titans take the field at home in Nissan Stadium in the AFC divisional round. But it looks good. He's making,
Well, they may disrespect the Titans and play on Saturday.
No matter which day they play, you're getting a Derrick Henry. And what I saw in that video, that makes me feel fine. He's doing things. He's looking fine. He's looking a little spry. And I get it, recovering from any injury, especially as an athlete, especially in the lower body, it takes a while and it takes a lot of reps for you to regain trust in that, afflicted body part. And so just having Derrick Henry on that, making football movements, running these short check down routes, hitting cuts in practice, stepping over tackling dummies, whatever it may be. I love all Derrick Henry practice content as long as he's not slipping and falling. That is the one thing I didn't like.
Yeah, I did see that. Look, I've been watching Derrick Henry at practice since he was drafted, and I did feel that he was a little bit more authoritative in his movement in that video, because I think Henry himself is trying to figure out his speed and his ability and his ceiling. It's not the same thing, in preseason and training camp and all that stuff. They go hard, but they also are cognizant that they have to stay healthy for the rest of the season. There's going to be a long grind. This is now a sprint. It's no longer a marathon. The marathon begins in August. Now we're at a dead sprint. You get an extra week of rest because of the 1 seed. So I actually felt really good. And I agree with Dean. My man Dean is right. The man looks bigger without pads on.
He wasn't skipping meals, was he, Zach? He wasn't skipping workouts.
No, he wasn't. Wow. Well, a lot of exciting stuff. It's been, we've had some really good topics, but now eyeshadow Jack Sparrow finally. Gentry. We're going to have to dig back into this magic bucket. It's magic.
Yeah.
You got the magic in me.
Sometimes it's dark magic, which is what I found myself in last Thursday, and that's why I've got eyeshadow on. I didn't wear eyeshadow for my own health, guys. For those who came in late, it was my punishment for the magic bucket last week. I decided to procrastinate and wait till today to pay it off.
And this is what everybody said. Nobody cares. If you can see, nobody cares. We've got tons of, we got Bass Pro. We got Guy Fieri right there. Welcome to Flavortown. Man, I love the magic bucket. Let's get to the magic bucket. But first, I'm going to tell you guys about our great sponsor, Renter's Warehouse. Renter's Warehouse is where to go when it comes to Nashville's professional landlords. Only $89 a month. Let them be your landlord. They will go find your tenant. They will do background checks. They will collect the money, and that money will be in your bank account. Start thinking smarter and create a cash flow for you and your family, whether it is a rental property inside of Nashville, outside of Nashville. There's a ton of people renting. A lot of people come to this city. This is the time to pounce, all for a great fee that won't cost you a lot. There's no contracts too, so it's kind of go as you want, but they will make sure things are done the correct way. That's renterswarehouse.com.
Talk about somebody who does it the correct way. That's BetMGM. Download this new sportsbook, not new sportsbook, but it could be new to you. And if it is new to you, use that promo code A to Z Sports, ATOZ Sports. Place a $10 money line wager on any NBA team in action tonight. There's a handful of games. The Grizzlies and Timberwolves being one. If you want to put $10 on the Grizzlies money line, do it. And if one team hits a three-pointer in that game, you'll be able to turn that $10 into $200. But if you don't like that Grizzlies game and you want to put that $10 money line wager somewhere else, that's fine. As long as it's in the NBA, you'll turn that $10 into $200 as long as any team in that game hits just one three-pointer. It's a free $200, guys. There's going to be a three-pointer hit in every single game tonight. There may be 10 in every single game tonight. It's too easy. $10 into $200 as long as you download the BetMG app and use that promo code A to Z Sports.
Let's get to it. Ooh, that sound means that it's about to go down. Jack, do you want me to pick for me or do you want me to pick for you?
Man, I went first last time and it did not go well for me. So I want you to pick for you first.
All right, I'm picking for me. Ooh, I got this last time. Dinosaur. So we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
That would have been a good one for you, though.
I made a pterodactyl noise last week. So
I got a good one. I like this one. Name blank amount of blank in 15 seconds. So what you have to do is get your timer. Do you have a timer? You got a phone?
Oh, yeah.
And you have to tell me how many. I'm going to try to name as many, whatever you come up with, in 15 seconds, right? Okay. So how it works is you're going to say name blank of blank in 15 seconds, and you're going to say that twice. The second time that you say it, that's when the clock starts. So I'm going to give you an example. Don't use this example, but name as many soda brands as you can in 15 seconds. Name as many soda brands as you can in 15 seconds. That second time, that's when the clock starts, and that's when I go.
All right, I've got a fun one. Name 10 punters in the NFL in 25 seconds. Got it?
No. So, time out.
No?
You're not doing the game.
What?
It's name as many punters as you can in 15 seconds.
Okay, all right.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this.
Tweak it for. Okay. Name as many punters in the NFL as you can in 15 seconds. I'll read it one more time, and then your time's going to start. Ready? Name as many punters in the NFL as you can in 15 seconds. Your time starts now.
You didn't say if they were going to be active or not. I'm going to go Brett Kern. Man, this is difficult. I mean, if you go history, Tom Tupa, Joe Nedney. No, he's a kicker.
That's it. You named 2 punters in 15 seconds. Do you feel good about that?
No, I feel terrible.
Yeah, I would too. You know, the whole Colquitt family, you could have rattled off like 7 just naming
I didn't even think about the Colquitts. I did get Tom Tupa. Wow. I thought I liked that game, but I don't think I like that game anymore.
Yeah, punters, it's tricky, you know. They don't get the TV time they deserve.
All right, punters. God, that's tough.
Tom Tupa.
All right, here we go. Let's see here.
The Titans have had 3 punters this season, I feel like.
Okay, so this is something that you should be able to do. You may have to come get it, but wear an A to Z Sports hat on the show tomorrow.
Okay, I need an A to Z Sports hat. How come you guys haven't already sent me an A to Z Sports hat? I've got a
Well,
few
we sent
shirts.
you. We sent you. Do you wear hats? Not everybody wears hats.
I only wear hats. Are you kidding me? Do you see the hell I get every day in this chat for my hair? Of course I wear hats. Hats are the only thing I wear.
So what we'll do is I will send you, courtesy of A to Z Sports, I'll send you a hat after the show, free of charge. We'll send it right to your door. Just you need to send me your address. Don't say your address on air because people will be knocking at your door trying to get your eyeshadow. And I will send that. You will have to write this down. You could borrow one of my hats for tomorrow, but that is or you could wear it the next time you're on the show.
Okay. That's easy. That's after having to wear eyeshadow. That's about as good as it gets.
So there you go, free of charge here. And Scott says you need to send us all hats. You can buy as many hats as you want. We have them for sale at shop.a2zsportsnashville.com. I'm going to go real quick. And I'll put it in the chat.
I'm with Orlando. You got to get this guy a free hat. Come on. I need that hat. Do I come over
we gave him like a whole set of shirts. So I don't care. We're not trying to be stingy. We're not trying to be stingy on him.
I know. Look, I'll wear the hat without a doubt. Putting on eyeshadow today was a hell of an adventure, and the hat will look way better on me than this smoky eyeshadow is. But hey, the show's just about over. I'll get to go wipe it off in a few minutes, and
it's hard to come. No, it doesn't come off easy. I mean, there's a reason why you have makeup remover. That's what I realized. I didn't know that. You sit there and you still look like a dead president after you keep wiping. You look yourself in the mirror and you're like, is it ever going to go away? Make the tears. It's like, this is what happens when girls cry.
Oh, no.
At least it wasn't mascara.
Yeah, I know. And my girlfriend was like, hey, do you want mascara to go with it? And I said, no. We're doing the bare minimum here. We're going to rub some dark eyeshadow on my eyes. And we did it. And we made a show out of it, raised some eyebrows in the process. That's what I'm here for. That's what the Magic Bucket does.
All right. Great show, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Great interaction and great questions. So enjoyed it all around on this Titans Thursday. We will be back bright and early tomorrow morning on a Friday to end the week, heading into Super Wildcard Weekend. Tune in, live notifications on. Buck Rising's got prime time tonight, but we will see you at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Adios.